Okay, are you ready to go way back into the past with me, way out into the weeds to talk about a great production effort on an old song that a lot of you have probably never heard, or if you have heard it, probably forgotten about it. And you might wonder, once I tell you what the song is, why are you going back so far into the past to talk about production from a song in 1978? Well, stay tuned and you'll find out. The song is called What Can I Do, and it's by 38 Special, and it's on this album Special Delivery. And the producer of the song is Dan Hartman. Now, Dan Hartman was a songwriter and a performer in his own right, and he had a big hit song called I Can Dream About You back in the 80s. But I'm not going to talk about him as a performer here. I want to talk about him as a producer. And the first thing that I want to say about him is that he created his own recording studio in Connecticut, and it was called the Schoolhouse. It was an old, colonial house that he remade to become a recording studio, and he took a lot of bands in there that weren't known and didn't have a lot of money to spend to go to a big time studio like Foghat or Derringer, and I think even some blues guys like Muddy Waters recorded there. So he opened up this studio, and one of the bands that came in there to record was 38 Special, and the album in question, Special Delivery, came out in 1978. It was recorded between January and February and came out in March of 1978. So keep that in mind as we talk about the production. Now, that I want to call your attention to just a few points about it. One is that when you're recording in a impromptu studio, when it's not a professional grade studio, when it doesn't have baffling and the rest of the sound insulation, one of the hardest things to do is to capture a bottom end. It's really hard to get a good drum sound, and it's really hard to get a good bass sound. Now, it's easier these days than it was in 1978, but it's still not super easy. So when you're listening to this track, keep in mind that what Dan Hartman decided to do, along with 38 Special, is just work around the fact that you're not going to get this really, really good, solid bottom end out of the... It's going to have to be compensated for. And what they do to compensate for this is they really concentrate on the guitar sound and the vocals, the mid-range and the higher end, and they bring it to its sweetest spot possible. The vocals in particular on this song just shine, particularly at the last quarter of the song, the last chorus of the song. So I mention this for a couple of reasons. One is not only to celebrate Dan Hartman's beautiful thinking behind how to arrange and record this track, but the second reason is because it's applicable to people who are recording in home studios now. Yes, the recording technology is way better, and so is the post-recording, the production capacity to take out room noise and boost the low end and the rest. But at the same time, it's always going to be a challenge to capture that, particularly if you want a live sound, which is what they're going for here. What the overall style and vision of this track was to capture the bar band sound at its perfect, most pristine capacity. So if you like 38 Special, and I do, you can go back to this album, and particularly this track, and hear them as though you're just sitting there having a beer and they're playing in a bar, but you've got perfect sound. The last thing I'll say here is that the kind of production that is done here is one way you can go if you're not trying to sound like every single other person who's using the same plugins and the same software. What you can do is, if you can get a band to record in any space, you can use this same strategy of, okay, so we're going to lose some of the bottom end, but what we can do is we can mix the song and we can approach the production on the song to really spotlight the elements that we can effectively capture. And in this case, you can still get the energy of the song, you can still get the melody of the song, you can still get the overall vibe and feeling of the band, even though it's not got a perfect recording of the drums or the bass. My last point here is if you take a close listen to it, you'll notice that they did the best they could with the limited bottom end, particularly by accenting the top end of the drum kit. There's great cymbal sounds on here. So if you're a producer or an engineer or just someone who likes to think about the deeper aspects of sound recording, this is a real good track to go back and listen to and think about, because Dad Hartman just did an excellent job on the fly of capturing this gifted bar band. 38 Special became a big commercial band, and it had... So anyway, that's my take on Dan Hartman and the song What Can I Do by 38 Special. And if you have any thoughts about this or anything else connected to classic or contemporary music, please comment in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.